Good morning and good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you making some time to be with us today. So, today is all about Eloqua landing pages, not so much about how to use them and configuring them necessarily, but we want to give you some use cases and show you some examples of how clients and how Marketing Cube and others are using landing pages as part of campaigns. So, let's dive in and get started. But the first thing I wanted to do is to make an acknowledgement of country. And so I begin today by acknowledging the Gadigal people, who are the traditional owners or custodians of the land on which we broadcast from today, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples online with us today. So welcome, everybody. Some housekeeping for you. So we use Zoom to host and record our sessions, as you're probably aware, and replays are available on our blog. So you'll be able to access those. There's a library of blog posts for you to access there as well on a whole range of topics. So please use the Zoom Q&A throughout the session. And if you wanted to use the chat, you can do that. That is more private. But the Q&A is good because you can also see what other people are asking, and you can actually upvote anything that other people ask as well. So my name is Derek Bell. I'm your host for today, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Customer Success here at Marketing Cube. And Adrian Jones is with us today, and Adrian's doing a couple of things today. He's helping work with the Q&A to answer some of those questions, but he's also going to be sharing a particular example from one of our clients, Atlas Loves Travel, which is a Singapore-based company. So we look forward to that at the end of today's session. So thanks, Adrian, for making some time. All right, so what's on the agenda for the next 45 minutes? So we did have one question submitted. We'll walk through that one, and then we're looking at which delivers the best CX. And so that will be focusing on landing pages and your CMS. Then we're going to try some use cases and also look at forms and landing pages and understand there's some really good tricks that you can do there as well, and some great functionality and more secure functionality as well. And then, of course, we're going to meet Atlas Loves Travel and share some examples with some really cool stuff that they've been doing. And if we have time, we'll then dive into Release 24B, which was covered a little bit last month. But if you missed that, we'll try and get to that as well today. All right, so your questions, our answers. So questions from Katakanya in Indonesia. Thank you so much for your question. And let's have a look. So what should we need to consider before deciding to use landing pages or our website? So very topical question and on the mark, so thank you. And the second one is, if we're about to do a lead generation on LinkedIn, do you have any insight how's the performance between capturing the data using Eloqua landing pages versus a LinkedIn form? All right, so let's take those two questions. So answers. So the first one, I think today's webinar will answer that first question. So I'll leave that one and we'll also progress through today's webinar. But the second one wasn't specifically something we planned to cover today. But the LinkedIn Campaign Manager app, I think, is really the best solution. And we do have a number of clients, including ourselves, who use the LinkedIn Campaign Manager app. So obviously it's a paid exercise, right? So you have to pay LinkedIn to do the advertising. The upside is, though, from the LinkedIn user experience, is they don't have to leave LinkedIn, and they can use their LinkedIn profile to submit your form. And that happens all within the LinkedIn environment. They don't leave LinkedIn in order to do that. But the LinkedIn Campaign Manager app enables you to connect those form submissions in LinkedIn directly to Eloqua. And that's what you're seeing on the right-hand side of the screen here, which is the campaign canvas. And so the campaign canvas, you can see the LinkedIn lead gen form is the entry point on that canvas. We take them through the contact washing machine to make sure the first name and last name is in proper case. Then we send them the email. In this case, the example you're looking at was a webinar that we hosted in 2020. And we were getting people to either register through outbound emails that we had sent to our existing contacts. So we used a separate canvas to do that. And then we used this canvas to send confirmation emails to people who actually registered through LinkedIn. So now that costs money, but I've got to say that we've done it a number of times, and I've got to say the quality of the responses we've got and the contacts that we've managed to source through LinkedIn that were net new additions to our database, we're good. It's also so much easier to have it integrated. The actual app to do the connection, that's free of charge. That doesn't cost you anything. But when you run your advertising campaign on LinkedIn, well, yes, you've got to slip in the corporate credit card to pay for that one. That information on the bottom left of the screen is really just a bit of a breakdown of what the app does. And you'll find that information in the Help Center. Of course, if you need any help with setting that up, please let us know. And happy to give you a hand with that one. It's pretty easy to do. There are a range of ways to do it as well, and we can probably save you a little bit of time and some guesswork with giving you a hand on that one. So hopefully that helps answer your question. All right, so let's jump into the main topic for today, which delivers the best CX? And I think that's really got to be the key question that we need an answer to if we're having a debate around, well, Eloqua Landing Pages or my CMS. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a binary exercise, right? There are options. So I think, first of all, what we need to do is understand what's possible so we can make a more informed decision. So you really have two choices to start with. And when you build landing pages in Eloqua, you can use your source editor, which is a full HTML environment. So I can't express with any more clarity that point. So there are some who seem to have an opinion or a misunderstanding that there are limitations to Eloqua landing pages. Absolutely not. Whatever you build in, for example, WordPress or Sitecore or whatever it is you're using to build landing pages, if you're not using Eloqua, it's HTML, and HTML is HTML. It doesn't matter which platform you're using. So there's absolutely no reason why your Eloqua landing pages can't look identical to your website. The next question, of course, then comes about, well, should my Eloqua landing pages look exactly like my website? And that's another discussion. We'll walk through that a little bit today. The other option is to use the design editor. And I want to show you a couple of different options for both today, so you can kind of see the two. So keep in mind with the design editor, which is your drag and drop plus HTML, that you do have that plus HTML function. So if there's something super cool that's a little bit different that you want to include within the design editor version of the landing pages, well, that's fine. You can use that. You can drop in some HTML code to do a whole range of things. Now, CSS, importantly, and JavaScript can be added to both of these. So it's not something that you can't do on the design editor. You absolutely can. And you experience that every time you register for the Eloqua user group. When you register for the Eloqua user group, that's a design editor page. And there's a little bit of CSS to help with styling and a little bit of JavaScript for a little bit of magic, primarily on the form. So when we ask you, would you like an SMS reminder? If you say yes, the form actually drops down and the mobile phone field appears. That's using a little bit of JavaScript to do that. And that was done once, like 6 years ago. And I've never had to touch it again. It's just simply hardwired into my templates and I don't touch it. It just functions that way every time. So I just can't emphasize enough that there really aren't limitations in relation to what you can do. I wanted to show you our good friends at the University of Auckland we asked them if we could share some things from them, and they gave us their okay, which we appreciate. And so first thing I wanted to show you is this is their CMS. This is not Eloqua, this is their CMS. And you can see it's a great website. They're a university, so you can imagine there's multiple faculties, etc. So lots of different sub areas within the university. And of course, you've got within each faculty, you've got undergraduate, postgraduate, etc. So there's a lot of information, and fairly normal for universities, obviously, to have that amount of information. But the engineering school wanted to do something a little bit different. And so they came up with the idea of a quiz. And the quiz essentially gives students an opportunity, or prospective students, an opportunity to sort of help them figure out what it is they should or maybe want to study within the School of Engineering. And so they came up with a quiz. And so what you're looking at now is actually an Eloqua landing page. You'll notice a few things, right? If you compare the two, the first page had top line navigation, etc. If I was able to scroll all the way to the bottom of that page, you would see a footer that pretty much resembles the footer that you can see here. But the footer here is slightly reduced in relation to the options that are available. They've kind of slimmed it down necessarily. because the objective here is to make sure that we can give the best possible experience, but keep the person focused on what they're doing. So this is live. This is the actual page itself. And I'm just going to walk you through what happens. So I'm going to start the quiz. Okay, first question. Have you studied engineering before? And I'm going to say no, because I have not studied engineering. Okay, what do you value most in your career? Okay, let's say making a difference to communities. All right. So next questions. Which of these are you most interested in? Okay, I'm going to say environment and sustainability. Now, before I progress, what you're looking at, it looks like nice graphics, etc. But at the end of the day, at the back end, what you're looking at, it's just simply a form submission. That's all it is. We're just using icons and images as the responses versus having a drop-down pick list, for example. So you can see it's a little bit more fun, a little bit more engaging, right, to play with. So let's do environment and sustainability. Now, did you notice at no point did they ask for my information? Okay, interesting point, right? So, okay, so now I've completed the exercise and my future career, sustainability solutions. So here are some programs that can help you get there. Okay, so that's cool. Yep, now you notice I can't click here. Okay, so they're not sending me away. The key thing they want me to do here is to actually pop in my details. Okay, so I can drop in my information and pop in my email address. Now, there's a few things that you should understand that have actually happened. If I get to this page and I choose not to submit my first name, last name, and email address, that's okay. The form has actually captured the information that has been provided. If you were to look at the form submission data and I didn't submit anything here, well, you would see just blank in that case, okay? But the information itself is captured. So that can be helpful from an analysis point of view. But of course, the end goal is to get somebody to actually fill in the form and present their details. So they kind of explain on screen what's happening and what they're going to do and what they're going to send to me. So it's a Q&A info pack with tailored information based on the information or responses that I gave within the survey. So nice and easy. So I can submit and I can play again if I want to. So that's just one example of an Eloqua landing page, which is incorporated into the navigation of the CMS. Okay. Okay. So one of the questions that was asked earlier there was in relation to what should I be considering? What sort of questions should we be asking? Well, we sat down and did some thinking, and these are kind of the standard things that come up in our mind as to why you might consider using the Eloqua landing page versus the CMS or website. Dynamic content and copy and images are probably one of the big ones. The ability to personalize at a field merge point of view. So to greet somebody when they arrive at the page, to actually greet them by name. And in concert with the dynamic content, being able to adjust the content on those relevant pages. Now, one thing that you may not be aware of, So when you get to this final page, this banner here at the top is actually dynamic based on the responses that you provide. So depending on the responses and information that you give, this banner at the top actually changes through that process. So the other big one, is pre-filling your forms. Now, in that particular example, that's not a form that you can pre-fill. But if you get to that final piece, and yes, that potentially could pre-populate. The other thing is that Eloqua landing pages can literally be live in minutes. Now, of course, you need some templates to make sure that that looks the way it should. You don't want to start with a blank sheet of paper necessarily, but they certainly can be live in minutes. As soon as you open your Eloqua landing page, provide a simple URL that you add to your domain and save it, it's live on the internet. So it's ready to rock and roll really, really quickly. So they would certainly be some questions or things to consider in the context of your campaign that might make easier to determine which one. Should we be using Eloqua or should we be using the CMS? More of an informed decision, let's look at the types of campaigns that you're running that might also be good candidates for the Eloqua landing pages. Certainly lead capture. Event registration is probably one that nearly everybody on the call, if I have a look, probably everybody on the call today has run events and used Eloqua to help from an event registration point of view, whether it's an in-person or webinar, for example. Accessing thought leadership is another one. So if you're presenting, I look at our financial services clients, and it's now the month of June, end of financial year, and there's lots of insight, etc., that our financial services clients are wanting to offer. And so much of that awesome content is available through a form. So it's gated. It's high value content, and so you don't want to give it away, but asking people for a little bit of information. Delivering of a survey. We, many years ago, a client of ours in the automotive space used Eloqua to present recent owners or recent sales with a survey to determine how well they'd done. And so that information was captured over time, stored in a custom data object, and shared to the CRM as well. And that information was used for a whole range of different things. But yeah, they used that for many years. Advertising. So if I go way back, you probably remember when there was such a huge focus on banner ads. Some of you may remember. Just one example, I remember again, a financial services client where they drove people from the banner ads directly to an Eloqua landing page because they found sending people to their website, they just got lost, right? There's so much information on the website. But having an Eloqua landing page is able to present people with a slimmed down version with a form. And really the only way to get off that page is to fill in the form. And so if you're doing advertising, driving people to an Eloqua landing page where you can really control that experience so much better is a really good idea. So something else to think about. Gamification. And you could maybe look at that one that the University of Auckland done as a little bit of a survey, a little bit of gamification in that process. So there's lots of use cases as to why your Eloqua landing pages could be a winner over the two. So let's dive into some more use cases, a little bit more specifically, and to see how we can deliver that on-brand experience literally in minutes. Let's have a look. Okay, so this is a bit of a visual exercise, and then we'll jump in and have a look. So this is something that you probably do at the moment. Most of you from a registration for an event, you have a form with a landing page. People submit that form, they receive a confirmation page, and then you send an email to that person, a confirmation email of some sort. And so you're utilizing the form processing steps within the form to send that confirmation email, etc. And of course, you can tailor the confirmation page to be a range of different things based on the information the person gives you in the form. So if you think about a multi-city event, for example, you only need one registration form. You can either create multiple confirmation pages based on the different locations, or you could use dynamic content depending on the complexity of it and what you're trying to do. So that's one example. Now, one that you may or may not have thought about is utilizing Eloqua to create a microsite. Now, while the term microsite, when you log into Eloqua and you look at landing pages, the term microsite is kind of thrown there in front of you, and it's really just relating to the URL. What I'm talking about is a microsite in the true sense of the word, where it really is a contained website for a specific purpose, hence a microsite. One of the bigger or the better examples, I suppose, if we look at the university sector, it could be an open day. So each open day that happens throughout the course of the year is unique, and there are different things happening, etc. And so instead of having to rehash the website necessarily, you can create a microsite, which is completely built within Eloqua, that enables you to hyper-personalize every single page, adjust content. It means marketing are far more in control of that process versus potentially having to lean on IT, if that's who you need to talk to from the CMS, or to work with your developers as well. So marketing can be in much greater control. If you wanted to present a microsite based on a particular topic, or maybe it's campaign specific, again, you're trying to keep people, not keep them away from the website, but you want to control the experience a lot better and remove some of the distractions. So you can see in this example, while we only have maybe 4 pages that make up the microsite, we've got one that is a registration form, if this is an annual event of some sort. And then you may have another page with a contact us form. Different purposes for different things, but whatever inquiries that people may have. So I wanted to show you some examples. So we've created one, and we've actually purchased the domain, myeloqua.com, which is kind of interesting that it was available. So from myeloqua.com, and you actually visit this one each month. So what I've done is the confirmation page that you see when you register for the user group each month kind of looks a little bit like this. But you'll notice there's also the navigation available here. So all you're looking at here essentially is 4 separate Eloqua landing pages that have really just been combined. And these are just buttons. That's all they are. It's just and this is all on the source editor, on the design editor. So there's no HTML here. This is just using the drag and drop functionality within the platform. And so you can kind of move backwards and forwards and look at the relevant information. And it's actually personalized as well. So there is dynamic content in here. So at the moment it thinks, at the moment it thinks I am a prospect versus a client of Eloqua. Sorry, a client of Marketing Cube. So it kind of differs a little bit. If you're a customer of Marketing Cube, you see a different message to this one. And the message you see is to log a service request with the support team. So slightly different messaging in there. So that's one. Now, the next one I want to show you is actually under construction, so don't be too harsh and judge me on this one. This is why you're seeing photographs of the Greek Isles here, for example. So with the pending changes to the Australian Privacy Act, what we're trying to do is get a whole range of information together to help you make more informed decisions about what it is that you need to do. And so the purpose of this microsite is to give you access to different articles that are coming out from press, so from the media versus law, as in when we say law, we mean law firms typically, and maybe universities as well, any thought leadership that's coming out of there, and then anything from government sources as well. So again, and this one here is just using the slider. The reason I've got the Greek Isles in there and the lovely pond that you saw there in a moment ago is we want to put some more interesting and engaging things in there that you could actually click on that you may be interested in as well. So just again, and this is all using the design editor. Okay, so there's no HTML involved here. So here we're looking at different areas, what we can do. So eventually, once the legislation passes, this page will get enhanced with more information. But at the moment, we're just trying to get started. Here we've got a library with access to a whole bunch of government departments that you probably should be aware of, and some international regulations that are similar to what we might expect in Australia. We have a LinkedIn group, and that one actually takes you off to LinkedIn. So you'll need to log in order to get to that one. If somebody shares the link with somebody, they can come here and actually subscribe should they want to, and then also contact us. And so again, what we've done here is just sort of put a smaller form directly within the microsite that just makes it a little bit easier for people versus having to navigate away. So that's a microsite, and one that, as I said, is under construction. It's not quite finished, but you will get an invitation to access that one. And then the University of Auckland, I showed you this one as well. So the key thing here I wanted to show and point out was, notice again, just to reiterate, if we look at let me go back. No. University. Key thing I wanted to show there was looking at the essentially the navigation. So you can see, if you actually compare, if I put them side by side, which is what I wanted to do here. So here we have that, and then we have this. So you can see that the distraction is really taken away. So the key focus here was to get the person to fill in the relevant information to get to this point, where in reality, the only way to get off this page is to really complete the details, okay? Versus here, this is far more informational. Okay, there's a lot more information going on here within the school, and a lot more top-line navigation, and same thing as you scroll through, there's lots of information to access, and that's what you want. That's the purpose, obviously, of the CMS. But over here, it's far more targeted experience is what we're trying to deliver. Okay. So forms and landing pages. So forms and landing pages together are really important. And as we look at the importance of security and people's privacy and what you're doing with their data. But this construct here is probably reasonably familiar for most of you. So you're going to have Eloqua, you'll have a CRM platform. It could be Oracle Sales Cloud, it could be Salesforce, it could be Microsoft Dynamics. There's a whole range of CRM platforms that you may have. And most of you will have those integrated with Eloqua. Then you have your CMS platform, and that could be anything from WordPress to Sitecore. There's a whole range of platforms, obviously, that you could be using. And then depending on the CMS, you may be using third-party form apps to capture information. Now, the more databases you have, the more your security risk, okay, or the more risk there is, period. So do you know where your data is stored? That's the other important question. If you're unsure about Eloqua, if you're on pod 7, you're in Sydney. If you're on pod 1, you're in Toronto. And there are a few other locations around the world. All right, so smart use of Eloqua Forms. And sorry, I went too fast there. Let's go back. So using Eloqua Forms in place of third-party forms delivers a much more secure customer experience. So it means that we can, instead of having data sitting in one place, your third-party form, and then potentially coming into the CMS, and then from the CMS, somehow getting to Eloqua, or maybe it triggers an email to somebody that then has to be manually entered into the CRM. This becomes clumsy, and there's risk associated. So utilizing your Eloqua Forms means we can pre-populate those forms for people. So especially if they reach them via an email, it's a much nicer experience. You can also take advantage of progressive profiling, which is a great way to build that first-party data that you're really trying to get hold of, certainly as things are starting to change in that space. If you've got your phone and you want to scan that QR code, we've created a new page on our website. So now I'm going to send you to our CMS, which talks about a service we can provide to help you get better use out of your forms. Have a little look at that if you like. I'll give you that code here again here in just a minute. Other ways that the form can help. Okay, so it's flexible and there's a little bit of magic that can certainly be involved. These can be some good use cases. An elegant event registration experience, and as I said, most of you will have been through that process. Post-event surveys are a great way to do it. Instead of putting pieces of paper necessarily, you could put pieces of paper on chairs after an event with a QR code in place of giving people pens. I mean, I don't carry pens with me anymore at all. I just use my phone and my laptop. So QR codes are a great way to send people directly to an Eloqua form. And again, the data is staying contained within Eloqua, not some third-party site. NPS, customer satisfaction surveys, contact us, even case management is another way to do it. So the case management is probably slightly left of center of prospect, it's more about customer communications, but you can certainly do that. So for Salesforce, certainly as far as I'm aware, from Oracle Sales Cloud and certainly from Salesforce point of view clients, then the case management process or service request type management is nice and easy. We can trigger that directly from Eloqua through form processing steps into the CRM platform to launch those for you. So it can be a nice, easy way to get people in. So secure data capture is really the key message here. And this is why your Eloqua forms versus third-party apps can be much safer. So if we look at your Eloqua database, I'm trying to give you an idea here of what your ecosystem may or may not look like. So you've got a CMS. So it could be WordPress, right? It could be Sitecore, it could be anything like that. Now, you may be using third-party apps to send information, capture information, which is then potentially shared with the CMS. So think about, personally identifiable data that's being shared and distributed across multiple locations. And then from the CMS, you may or may not send it to Eloqua. You may send it directly to the CRM. And as I said, in most cases, most of you will have the CRM and Eloqua talking together. So data is flowing backwards and forwards. So one of the easiest things to do is, if we can get rid of some of that databases, get rid of some of those databases, then we reduce the risk. The easy one to get rid of is the third-party application that captures forms. You don't need that because you've already got that within Eloqua. So get rid of that one. That's just a risk, essentially, to the whole exercise. Now, there are a few ways that you can add your Eloqua forms to your CMS. We can embed those forms, and you might be familiar with an iframe is one way to do that. The other one is to include a landing page form in the actual navigation of your website. So what that would kind of mean in reality is that the CMS is not really holding any of that information. In reality, the data is flowing from an Eloqua form that is embedded either as an iframe or it's actually just an Eloqua landing page, in which case, in both of those examples, the data goes directly from the form directly into Eloqua and doesn't even touch the CMS. So that's kind of why I've grayed out the CMS. I haven't got rid of the CMS because it's kind of still there, but we're not actually having any of the data from the form submission go into the CMS. The data in these examples with an embedded iframe or a landing page is going from the form directly into Eloqua. So you can see right away through that example, we've got rid of the third-party databases. We've got rid of really storing any data in the CMS, and we're just going directly into Eloqua. And then from there, into your CRM. So let me show you two examples of those and what that can look like. So the first one I want to show you is, and it's actually on Marketing Cube's website. You may have filled this form in yourself. So we use WordPress as our underlying platform or our CMS, and you'll see Contact Us in the top right-hand corner. So when I click on Contact Us, I actually leave CMS and I move directly to Eloqua. You'll see again, we've got rid of the top line menu. Our key focus here is to have you fill in the form and submit the relevant detail. Now, the other option, and this is actually one from Atlas Loves Travel. So Adrian will be with you shortly and we'll explain a bit more about this. So what we've got is Contact. So what they've elected to do, instead of sending you off to an Eloqua landing page, they've actually embedded this form here within the CMS. So you're looking at the CMS right now, but that form that you can see in the form fields contained in it is actually an iframe. So when I fill in that form and click on Get in Touch, that information goes directly from here straight into Eloqua. It doesn't go into the CMS and then have to get moved around and emailed to people and all over the place. It goes from here directly into Eloqua. And from Eloqua, we use the existing integration and form processing steps to get that information directly into the CRM where they can then act upon that. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of an example and a bit of an idea as to how Eloqua landing pages, both from a styling point of view, from a security point of view, and working with forms can really deliver a much nicer experience. So let's have a look at Atlas Loves Travel. So Adrian, are you there?
Hi there.
Beautiful. Well, I'll hand over to you, Adrian. I think Adrian's going to share his screen here in a minute and talk a little bit more about Atlas Loves Travel and the use case that they've come up with in relation to Eloqua landing pages and forms. So over to you, Adrian.
Oh, thanks, Derek. Perfect. So Atlas Love Travel is a client of ours. They're a technology platform, and essentially that platform provides travel sellers, like travel agencies, with access to low-cost carriers. And so if you wanted to join their ecosystem and start to get integrated, this is the page that you would come to. And this is actually one of those iframes with a form on it. But you can see that the look and feel is completely Atlas branded. This is actually like a CMS, but the form is actually an Eloqua form. What Atlas really wanted to do was to take advantage of Eloqua, and they use it across their entire customer journey. So not just for marketing and sales. And in order to drive that process or help with that process, they developed an implementation kit. And that basically standardizes the implementation process for their customers and enables the team to focus on the customer relationship rather than chasing people for information. So it's really completely automated. And as you'll see, once they sort of submit this form, it goes into their Salesforce system, it goes into Eloqua originally, then into their Salesforce system, it creates a lead and a case. And from there, they start working on things behind the scenes to basically create essentially this automated microsite experience. So they'll send the implementation partner will send the customer an invitation to come in and complete or start their implementation kit. And this is where they go. So first off, you'll see the look and feel pretty similar to their CMS. It's slightly changed, but they've basically got that same look and feel, the same branding. And right up here in the top right-hand side, you'll see there's the Marketing Cube or a logo, the client's logo. And that gets pulled from Salesforce into Eloqua and is ultimately being shown on this implementation kit. And also we've got some personalization. We've got the account name in the banner here. And as we go down the page, you'll see there's this progress bar, again, branded, so we can see where we are in the process. We can see we've got kickoff, go live, and live, and we'll kind of go through each of those. And then as we go through and scroll down, you'll see we've got these details pulled through. Again, Salesforce and Eloqua. This would be the client side flight deck account administrator, and then the account manager. So again, Atlas's account manager would sit in here as well. So sorry, Derek, were you saying something?
I was saying, I'm your account manager. When did that happen?
Okay, that's you. That's right. Exactly. There you go. And then we've got, so the A-Trip flight deck is actually the technology platform. So Atlas is trying to get people to engage with that as much as possible. So we can go to the flight deck from here. And obviously there's lots of opportunities to do that throughout. But the next step in the process is try and gather all the information that Atlas needs to really build out the actual implementation plan. The next step is to go and complete these kickoff requirements. So I've got some of this sort of filled out a little bit. So I'm going to jump to here. And basically, as you can see, this microsite building out. And you can see at the top here, we've got this checklist type construction. So as I go through, I can tick off the things that I've done. And I've got that information there. And then here we've got some pretty smart forms that are helping to collect the information that we need. Again, I sort of pre-filled some of this because they're all mandatory fields and I don't want to create too much stuff going into the Atlas database. But essentially what we've got here is, so this some of these would be pre-populated. But for example, I can add another operations manager or up to 3 and fill in that information there. And you can see the fields are dynamic and the forms acting in a dynamic way. And as we go on and submit key context, we're going to ask for our content requirement. And you can see here we can choose either B2C or B2B or both. So some pretty clever field dynamics that you wouldn't normally see. And depending on which ones I select, if I select B2C, for example, I've got a range of different options here and I can click one or more. And they might then go on and ask me different questions. So because I've selected some other B2C channels, it's basically asking me for some more details. Conversely, if I selected B2B, it's going to ask me for some primary B2B traffic channels. As a result, it's going to then ask me for further information as well. So all of this is relevant information for the setup of this customer for Atlas, but essentially you can see it's pretty easy to use. These are sort of normal pick lists that are down here below. And then as I go to next, get the same thing experience again to go on and ask for my payment and finance requirements. So again, I can select multiple different payment options, and depending on the options that I pick, I'm going to get presented with different questions. So pretty smart form that's getting the information that we need. All this information is going obviously back into Eloqua. It's going back into Salesforce, and different teams can then engage with that information and set things up. So from a customer perspective, it's really as seamless as it can be. We're getting all the information or as much of the information as we need to get that implementation started. And at the same time, making sure that the customer's got access to continue to engage as much as possible, with the A-Trip platform. So we can see here, we go to the go live phase. So this is where we get to the next stage in the process, and customer knows what they need to do next. They actually go and fund some initial test transactions. They can top up their account here, so they can go to this link. And finally, once that's all completed, our progress bars moved along. You can see our microsites kind of fully built out, and they confirm kind of the integration set up, that the customer's now live and on the platform, and that they're up and running. So you can see it's really a dynamic process that builds kind of a great CX for the customer, but it also enables Atlas to provide that sort of seamless experience and drive that engagement with the A-Trip flight deck and the Atlas technology platform as much as possible and as quickly as they can get them underway.
So one thing that I love about that form, Adrian, too, is I understand where you were adding those contacts, that because we know which account those people are associated with, the integration into Salesforce actually creates those as contacts in the CRM linked already to that account versus them being a lead and then having to go through the conversion process. For those who are using Salesforce CRM, you'll be familiar with that process.
Yeah, exactly. And I was actually even thinking, you think about any sort of those sort of ABM type processes where you're trying to run campaigns or trying to tailor landing pages for specific accounts. This is a sort of you could use a very similar structure, right? Where you've got logos, very specific related images and banners could be based on, say, the industry, for example, pull in their logos, fill in their sort of contact or account details on that page so you can associate them to the account rather than have them come in as leads and attach them later. So yeah, lots of kind of ABM crossovers, but I also love the fact that this is sort of being used later in that whole customer journey, and being used sort of for implementation and onboarding, which is sort of a which I think not so many customers tend to kind of get the opportunity to do that outside of kind of the marketing department. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember years ago we were sitting in a meeting in Melbourne, and you might remember there was a video conference with London, and the CMO that we were meeting with had their PR person in the London office. And I remember she said to the person in London, go ahead and add that person to our Excel spreadsheet for those press releases that we're going to send out using Outlook. And then literally as she said that, she looked at me and she's like, why aren't we doing this in Eloqua?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, right? So there are multiple applications. At the end of the day, if you need to communicate with people, then Eloqua is a platform to do that. It certainly can be beyond marketing. And the folks at Atlas have shown us that here's a perfect example that's not a marketing activity, really. It's a whole onboarding process for their clients where they've utilized the technology they've got versus having to go and acquire more technology potentially to do things. And just to clarify also, the pages I showed, or some of the examples I showed, were done in the design editor, being the drag and drop landing page function. But those pages were created in the source editor, which was HTML coding. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just to have a bit more flexibility around the branding and some of that sort of functionality that you have where you've got sections that are hiding and appearing depending on what people are clicking, a little bit like that mobile phone example for the SMS that we were talking about, but just really that extending that out to do so much more. And it's just, yeah, we're able to do that a lot more cleanly, a lot more easily, I guess, in the source editor for that type of functionality. But as you say, it's not something that changes frequently. And once it's set up, they're able to do that. One of the other things with the forms is that those form values, because they're all driven by Eloqua, if you change those, then they will change on that form. So that doesn't you don't necessarily have to do any changes of coding just because you've got changes in values. It's more just the layout and kind of the dynamic pieces of the page that are more using that scripting.
Right. Awesome. Okay, well, we've just gone over our 45-minute allotment, so we probably should wrap up there. So in relation to Release 24B, you'll find information on our website from last month, and we'll provide you with some links and replays so you can get a little bit closer to that. In relation to next month we're going back to Wednesday. So we had to do Tuesday today because I'm speaking at a conference in Brisbane tomorrow. So we couldn't do that. So if there's anyone here from universities, if you're from universities, if you're at the IEAA conference tomorrow in Brisbane, I look forward to seeing you there. I'll be there Wednesday and Thursday. But otherwise, we'll see you next month on the 3rd of July and same time at 11 a.m. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. We'll stay on the line here if there are any questions. But otherwise, thanks very much for joining us and have a wonderful day.